The Chief Judge of Criminal Court, Abdullah Muhammad, was arrested and taken away to Girifushi Military Training Center by Maldives National Defense Force, MNDF, on the order of President Mohamed Nasheed on 17 January 2012 at 0000 hours. The Supreme Court of the Maldives and the lower courts ordered his release immediately. MNDF was also ordered several times by the High Court, the Criminal Court, and the Civil Court to present him at the respective courts. Human Rights Commission of the Maldives, the Prosecutor General, many other independent bodies, and several NGOs called for the Chief Judge's immediate release. However, President Nasheed repeatedly exercised his authority as Commander-in-Chief to ensure that the MNDF did not respect the court orders on the Abdullah Muhammad case. Opposition-led protests calling for his release were also held in Malé every night. Ruling Maldivian Democratic Party, MDP supporters also took to the streets during this period calling for judicial reform. The protests were mostly peaceful, but some led to violence and had to be dispersed by the police. Several opposition leaders, including members of parliament, were arrested by police during this process. On the night of 6 February 2012, supporters of both political affiliations gathered at the artificial beach in Malé for the 21st straight night of protests. Teams of police special operations were in place at the artificial beach to maintain security and to ensure that no violence broke out between the two protesting sides. At around 22:30 hours, the police teams were ordered to withdraw from the scene. The police commanders on the ground informed police headquarters that some of the MDP supporters at the location were intoxicated and armed with sharp objects, stones, and batons, and that violence will break out if they left the scene. When police headquarters insisted they leave, police teams on the ground decided that they were duty-bound to stay put in order to prevent any violence and disregarded the orders from their superiors. They considered those orders as illegal and immoral. The police remained in place until a team from MNDF arrived at the scene to replace them. Once the soldiers arrived, the police teams moved to Republic Square for debriefing. However, the soldiers themselves were ordered by the president to move to the nearby MTCC sawmill area to reorganize. The commander on ground advised his superior commanders that it was an unwise decision, but eventually moved his troops to the said location on the insistence of his superior commanders. Once all the security forces left the location, violence broke out among the rival protesters and led to injuries to a number of people on both sides. After about 5 minutes, the MNDF team returned and attempted to contain the violence. At around 0030 hours, the police special operations teams at Republic Square learned about the violence in Artificial Beach. One public order unit, POU, consisting of about 30 police officers, decided to move to the Artificial Beach area to try to contain the violence. They felt that they had a legal responsibility to intervene and bring an end to the violence. Yet again, their decision was prompted on moral grounds. Once the police POU arrived at the artificial beach, they were again told to leave. Meanwhile, the defense minister had ordered MNDF to arrest the police officers who had disobeyed the orders from their higher headquarters. The police have mechanisms within their system to address instances of insubordination, and the defense minister's orders were a deviation from normal practice, which further estranged the police. Maldives Police Service, from its establishment in 2005, has been a civilian authority remitted under the Home Ministry. The police team was unhappy with these developments, and in particular the orders that were given to them throughout the night and also during the course of the protests since the arrest of the chief judge. The team left the artificial beach area and ransacked the MDP Haruge on their way back to the Republic Square. They joined with the remaining Special Operations Police at the Republic Square and remained there throughout the night in full riot gear. They were gathered there to make their feelings clear to their superiors. Negotiations were carried out with the dissenting police by teams from MNDF to see if there was a peaceful solution to the situation. The dissenting police were demanding that the Commissioner of Police meet with them and assure them that no illegal orders will be given to them in the future and that they will face no repercussions for their actions during the night. At that point, there were no calls or demands by the police for the resignation of the president. As time went on, more policemen from across Male and from the police headquarters continued to join the group already in Republic Square. Some were off-duty and in plain clothes. The police continued to express their unhappiness and dissent when it became clear that the Commissioner of Police would not speak to them at the Republic Square. Under the guidance of the President and the Defense Minister, MNDF senior leadership decided to curtail the actions of the dissenting police by arresting them by using any means necessary. In the meantime, more and more police continued to join the growing crowd at Republic Square. Once negotiations with the dissenting police failed, orders were passed from the Defense Minister to the MNDF leadership to disperse them using any necessary non-lethal force. However, the commanders on the ground were reluctant to go for direct confrontation with the police, as they feared that such a confrontation would lead to disastrous consequences for the nation. They were also concerned about their involvement in a domestic law enforcement scenario involving the police. It should also be noted that the dissenting police themselves did not wish for direct confrontation with MNDF. Military commanders on the ground recommended to their senior commanders a course of action of continued negotiations with the police. In the meantime, MNDF soldiers had blocked all the entry points and cordoned off the green zone, including Republic Square, MNDF headquarters, police headquarters, President's office, and the President's official residence. As the day broke, pro- and anti-government protesters had gathered just outside the cordons. Supporters of MDP were gathered at the Chandani Magu and Orchid Magu junction, and the opposition protesters were gathered in front of the Maldives Monetary Authority building. Members of Parliament and other prominent political figures were present on both sides, and some of the supporters of MDP were armed with domestic weapons such as knives and sharpened rods. Between 0600 hours and 0630 hours, President Mohamed Nasheed himself arrived at the Republic Square under heavy MNDF security and attempted to address the dissenting police. He told them that their actions were illegal and requested them to turn themselves into the custody of MNDF. He went on to imply that the security environment had deteriorated solely by their actions. The President was interrupted in mid-speech by the uproar of the police calling for his resignation. The President moved back into the headquarters of MNDF, where he convened the Defense Minister and the senior leadership of MNDF. He was also accompanied by the Foreign Minister and a ruling party MP. He ordered the Defense Force to disperse and arrest the rioting police using any necessary means. After the senior leadership meeting, the President, Defense Minister, Chief of Defense Force, and other senior officers moved to the entrance of MNDF headquarters. At about 0745 hours, all the gathered police were formed up in a circle in Republic Square, and they started reciting their creed as they do every day during muster. While they were reciting their creed, the Defense Minister ordered MNDF to recall the cordons blocking the MDP supporters. Ground commanders relayed back to the HQ that if the cordons were to be recalled, it should be done simultaneously at both the locations. They also advised their senior commanders that the situation will get out of control if the cordons were recalled. They were subsequently ordered that everybody was to move inside regardless of their concerns and followed the orders accordingly. As soon as the cordon was moved inside, rival protesters moved into the Republic Square, where the police were still reciting their creed. The MDP supporters attacked the police, opposition protesters, and the civilians from the western side of the Republic Square, and the police retaliated against them, and the situation became very violent and chaotic. At about the same time, MNDF was ordered by the defense minister to charge at the police from the southeast. The president and minister of defense were ordering individual soldiers to move outside and forcefully disperse the crowd. The area was heavily gassed and rubber bullets were fired into the crowd by MNDF. The situation became very chaotic and command and control was lost. Many soldiers, police officers, and civilians, including members of parliament and other political leaders, were injured. A few junior soldiers broke from their lines and joined the dissenting police amid the chaos. Many of these soldiers joined the police because they were unable to move back inside MNDF headquarters as the gates were locked amid the confusion. More soldiers from elsewhere in Mali also continued to join the protesters from that point. The president, along with the defense minister and chief of defense force and other senior officers, moved back inside the MNDF headquarters. While inside, the president repeatedly asked a small group of junior soldiers what he should do. Should he resign? And finally, some of them suggested by a show of hands that the best course of action would be for him to resign from office. They only said so when asked repeatedly by the president. It appears that the president had already made the decision to resign at that point of time. He was free to move inside MNDF headquarters and was not under any duress at any point of time. The president and the defense minister were on the phone with people outside the headquarters. The president said that he wanted to officially resign in front of the media at the president's office. He also requested that MNDF ensures the safety and security of himself and his family. Before he left MNDF headquarters, he advised MNDF senior leadership to stand firm as they have always been and not to allow the situation in the country to deteriorate any further. He also asked that his vice president, Dr. Wahid, be asked to come to the president's office and be present at the time of resignation. MNDF officers escorted the president to his office under heavy security. At his office, the president wrote his letter of resignation on his own will and announced it in front of the gathered media. After that, he was escorted to his residence under heavy guard to ensure his safety.